Hi, welcome to the Gemara on Daf Hey Amud Aleph. We're starting immediately following the Mishnah. That's why you see the word Gemara here. It's starting right after the Mishnah. So Gemara says as follows: Tana, Asara Batlanin Shebeit HaKnesset. So here's an additional Tanaitic statement to add to the information in the Mishnah. Asara Batlanin Shebeit HaKnesset. The 10 Batlanin that we talked about, the 10 idle people, are the 10 people in the Beit HaKnesset. We talked about this before. We saw this in Rashi, that these are 10 people who have nothing to do and therefore can hang out a lot and be helpful in making a minyan. Now we're going to comment on the next piece of the Mishnah. Be'elu amru makdimin v'lo ma'achrin. In these cases, meaning the dates of Megillah reading, they said we can make it earlier and not make it later. My taima. Why is this the case? Why can we only make Megillah reading earlier and not later? Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Shmuel, Amar Kra. I'll put the colon there, and then another colon here. So Rabbi Abba said in the name of Shmuel, the pasuk said, Amar Kra, pasuk says, V'lo yavor. And your first question to answer is, where have we seen this pasuk before, and what was it proving when it was quoted earlier? The Amar Rabbi Abba, Amar Shmuel. And Rabbi Abba said in the name of Shmuel, Minayin she'en monin yamim l'shanim. Here's a question. From where do we know, Minayin, from where do we know that we don't count days for years? Rashi fills in the background on this. We'll look at this Rashi eventually. But Rashi basically says when we count a year in halachic terms, let's say someone makes a neder not to do something for a year, we don't count days, we don't count 365 days, rather we count 12 months. And this is important because the lunar year and the solar year don't have the same number of days in them. We count 12 months, we don't care about it being 354 days or 365 days, we just say 12 months is a year. Shene Amar, so the answer is, as it says in the Pasuk, L'chodshei hashana. And you will eventually be looking up this pasuk, or we will be together. But l'chodshei hashana, from the pasuk in Shemot, this teaches us chodoshim ata moneh l'shanim. You count months for years, v'i ata moneh yamim l'shanim, and you do not count days for years. B'Rabbanan de Kesari mishum Rabbi Abba amru, and the rabbis of Kesari, in the name of Rabbi Abba, said as follows: Minayin she'en mechashvin sha'ot l'chodoshim. How do we know that we don't count hours for months? In other words, again, this is Rashi filling in. When we say we're going to do something for a month in halacha, we don't count the number of hours that make up a month. We just do the date, right? Like the first of Elul to the first of Tishrei. That's how you would count a month, not by the number of hours. And the answer is, so minayin again is that question word. Where do we know this from? And the answer is, Shene Amar, as it says in the Pasuk, Ad Chodesh Yamim. Again, we'll be talking more about what this Pasuk means exactly when we talk about it in class, but for now, Ad Chodesh Yamim, up to a month of days. This teaches us, Yamim ata mechashev l'chodeshim, v'i ata mechashev sha'ot l'chodeshim. You count, or you consider days for months, and you do not consider hours for months. Okay, now we're moving on to the next quote from the Mishnah, the next quote that we're going to be analyzing. Aval zman atzei kohanim v'tisha b'av v'chagiga v'hakel ma'achrin v'lo makdimin. However, the time for atzei kohanim, which we've talked about what that is, and the time for Tisha B'Av, and the time for Chagiga, the Yom Tov Korban, and Hakel, all those things we make later, and we don't make them earlier. And for this section of the Gemara, I will be asking you to make a structure chart. Tisha B'Av, so the reason for not making Tisha B'Av earlier, Akdume Paranut Lo Makadme. We do not make Paranut, evil, bad things, we don't make it earlier. Right? So Tisha B'Av commemorates only bad events, so we never make it earlier, we only make it later. Chagiga v'Hakel, and for Chagiga and Hakel, those two mitzvot, the reason we don't move them earlier, but we do move them later, Mishum da'akati lo matazman chiyuvayu. It's because Akati adayin, still, lo matazman chiyuvayu, the time of their chiyuv has not come. Right, you can't do them earlier because the chiyuv just hasn't kicked in yet. These are things you're only obligated to do at certain times, and you can't do them before the chiyuv kicks in. Tana, here's another Tanaitic statement on the subject. Chagiga v'chol chagiga ma'achrin. The chagiga offering and the whole time of chagiga you can make later. So now the Gemara is going to discuss what this statement means. Like, what is this coming to tell us? More so than just being able to push off the chagiga offering itself. Bishlama chagiga, di'i mikle b'shabta, ma'achrin ala levatar shabta. It makes sense to talk about the chagiga offering, because if it arrives on Shabbat, meaning if the obligation to offer the chagiga comes out on Shabbat, ma'achrin ala, we move it later to after Shabbat. Ela zman chagiga maihi. However, zman chagiga, what is it? Right? What is this zman chagiga thing separate from the chagiga offering? So now we're going to have multiple answers. Maihi really kicks off the question here. Right? Literally, what is it? And here are our answers. Amar Rav Oshaya. Rav Oshaya says, Hachika Amar. Here's what it's really saying. Chagiga b'Shabbat ve'olat re'iyah afil b'yom tov. Dizman chagiga ma'achrin. Chagiga on Shabbat, meaning chagiga gets pushed off if it falls out on Shabbat. Ve'olat re'iyah afil b'yom tov. And the olat re'iyah gets pushed off even if you were meant to do it on Yom Tov, because the Zman of Chagiga can be made later. In other words, there are actually two korbanot that need to be brought. One is the Chagiga offering, which is for Yom Tov, and the other is the Olat Riyah, which is also a holiday offering, commemorates the fact that you are, once upon a time, you were obligated to show up in Jerusalem at the temple on the holiday, and that was a different kind of offering, an Olat Riyah. So you don't even do on Yom Tov. You push it off till after Yom Tov because the Zman Chagiga can be made later. That's what that Tana statement that Tosefta is really saying. Now the Gemara has a question about that explanation. Mani, whose opinion is this? Here's the question word that we've seen before. And so who says this? Beit Shammai. This is the opinion of Beit Shammai. Ditznan, as we learn in the Mishnah. Beit Shammai amrim mevi'in shamim b'yom tov ve'in somchin olehen, aval lo olot. Ubeit Hillel amrim mevi'in shamim ve'olot ve'somchin olehen. So Beit Shammai, this is actually Beit Shammai's opinion. Ditznan, as we learn in the Mishnah, and I'll put that as a proof word. Beit Shammai say that we bring shamim on Yom Tov. Shamim, it's a kind of korban, and it's the kind of korban that the chagiga is. It's shalmei chagiga. Ve'in somchin olehen, but we don't lean on them on Yom Tov. I'll get back to that in a second. Aval lo olot, but we can't bring olot, which is a different kind of korban, like the olat riyah, an all burnt offering that we can't bring on Yom Tov. Ubeit Hillel omrim mevi'in shamim ve'olot v'somchin olehen. And Beit Hillel say we do bring both shamim and olot, and you can lean on them. So obviously the Breita matches, according to Rav Oshaya's opinion, according to his explanation of this statement, the Tana statement, which I'm going to bold. Rav Oshaya's statement matches with Beit Shammai. So just to go back to these korbanot a little bit, the chagiga is shlamim, the olat raya is an olah, and Rashi explains, Rashi's that we'll be looking at later on, Rashi explains that because the shlamim are eaten, they're ma'achal adam, and we're allowed to do things that are for ma'achal, for eating on Yom Tov, but not so for the olah, and so that's why you're not allowed to do it on Yom Tov. And smicha on korbanot, which is this obligation to kind of lean on the korban, Rashi explains that that's shvut, that's an iser d'Rabbanan, and so according to Beit Shammai, you wouldn't be allowed to do that on Yom Tov, and you would actually, according to Beit Shammai, have to do it before Yom Tov, in order to get it done. You wouldn't be able to do it on the Chag itself. So that's the end of the first answer. Rav Oshaya has explained to us what this statement means, what this Tanaitic statement means, and also how it matches with Beit Shammai's opinion. Here's the second answer. Rava Amar, Chagiga v'chol zman chagiga ma'achrin Chagiga kolzman chagiga ma'achrin, tzvei lo. So what this statement, this Tannaitic statement about Chagiga is actually saying is that Chagiga and the whole time of Chagiga, the Chagiga can be pushed off, during the whole time of Chagiga, but not more than that. Tzvei is owed, so not further than that. We're going to explain that in a minute. Here's Rava's proof text, Ditznan, as we learn in the Mishnah. I'll put this in our proof text color. Misha lo chag biyom tov harishon shel chag, chogeg v'holech et kol haregel kulo. V'yom tov ha'achron shel chag avar haregel v'lo chag eino chayav ba'achriyuto. So anyone who did not celebrate, but in this case it means didn't offer the korban on the first day of Yom Tov, of the holiday, can continue celebrating, meaning can bring the korban the whole regel, the whole holiday, right? So if you didn't do it at the beginning of Sukkot, you could do it as long as you do it before the end of Sukkot. V'yom tov ha'achron shel chag. And you can even do it the last day of Chag, right? You have the whole stretch of Chag to bring your korban. However, avar haregel v'lo chag, but if the holiday passed, the whole 7-day holiday passed, eino chayav ba'achriyuto, then you're not obligated, you're not responsible for it, you're not obligated in its responsibility, meaning you can no longer make it up, the obligation has passed. So Rava says that this Tannaitic statement of Chagiga, kolzman Chagiga ma'achrin, means you can push off Chagiga for all the time of Chagiga. It's like he gets rid of this vav. He doesn't say Chagiga and the whole zman of Chagiga, but rather Chagiga can be brought the whole time of Chagiga and not after that. Rav Ashi Amar, here's our third answer to what this Tannaitic statement means. Chagiga v'chol zman Chagiga ma'achrin, va'afilo atzeret, dechad yom ma'achrin. Chagiga, the Chagiga offering, and the whole time of Chagiga can be made later, even for atzeret, even for Shavuot, which is a one-day holiday, can be made later. Ditznan, as we learn in the Mishnah. So here's his proof text. As we learn in the Mishnah, modim she'im chal atzeret liyom Shabbat sheyom tivuach achar Shabbat. Everyone agrees that if Shavuot falls out on Shabbat, then the day of slaughtering the korban is after Shabbat. In other words, we get kind of a bonus 7 days for Shavuot. Even though Shavuot is a one-day holiday, we have the full, as though there were a Chol HaMoed, we have those full extra days in order to finish doing the korban. Rashi gives the context of the Mishnah that's quoted here. It's actually Machloket Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel that's being quoted. But as the Gemara quotes here, everyone agrees, right? Modin, meaning both Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel, agree that you have these extra days to fill in the korban. We're going to stop here, and again, the final question is to create a structure chart for this part of the Gemara.